Good afternoon, Ken Long from Kansas with my debriefing from today's True Storytelling session on October 26, 2020. It was the True Storytelling from the Heart session 3. What really struck me overall was the idea of the fire of the True Storytelling session. Just generates so many insights for me that I have to frequently empty my bowl into a cistern or a reservoir just so I can keep going back to get the next set of insights. And that these note sheets act for me as a commitment to the moment and the insights for later study. And the collection of these notes become my long-term storage of goodness, all part of that water cycle. So just some things that really jumped out at me today. The session was about the idea of the 4 hearts that lead towards transformational actions. And those 4 hearts are first to stop when you're in the moment and just relax and be in that moment. And then to be still in order to let that moment speak to you. And then accept what that is instead of what might be, what you wish it would be, what it could be, what it should be, just accepting exactly what it is on its own merits, which then leads to some possibilities for mindful new actions that change the cycle that brought you to wherever you are. And that almost feels, as an old soldier, like a battle drill, and it just reminded me of things like, stop, look, and listen, stop, drop, and roll. In every case, those kinds of battle drills always start with stop and become aware, and then make a change that makes a difference. Just some other fragments and pieces of stories and insights that hit. The first one is that in any storytelling situation or dialogue or discussion, when there's a moment that asks to be acknowledged and you make a decision not to, then that really is a choice and it leaves a mark. And so it's always there. We ended up talking about the idea of a silent witness today. And in my view, that is that's a person who's part of that dialogue, who has a very important yet silent role to play, and that is, in my view, representing the world, almost like the Roman tribune of the people representing the population while the Senate convenes. And that silent witness is not just a person who's not talking, and not just a person who's listening, but someone who represents that connection to the wider world. And there's a sense of obligation and duty that goes along with that. It's putting down a marker for future accountability, a documentation, a statement of intent. Really important part of that needs more exploration for me. In some of the stories that came out today, we were talking about, wasted opportunities or wasted resources, taking notes on paper and then coming back later to find out I've made multiple copies of that and thinking, well, that was a waste of paper. And then I felt like that's really not my call. I can't really waste anything. I can only use it for certain purposes, but conservation of mass and energy says it's always there, but in a different form. And so if I feel like it was a waste, it just means that I haven't found its proper or next purpose yet. Maybe it's beyond my skill or my awareness, or at the time I didn't realize. And so being more mindful and more of a craftsman, maybe I can use only those things that I need to commit to this project and preserve more of it for later. But scrap wood isn't scrap. That's the word I put on it. It's still pieces of wood that just haven't found their next purpose yet. And so things that at first look like waste, realize that's judgment coming from you, and it's not ever wasted. Unless we don't learn from it, I suppose. There was the notion of surrendering to the process, trusting the heart to do things, and this notion that when you're in the process, you're not yet in the results. So when you're worrying about the results, I wonder if this process is going to produce that result, you're no longer in the process and you're living forward supposedly in the results. You're not really in the results yet, but by not being here now, you're not fully committed into that process. And so on the idea of commitment, that led me to this line of reasoning, that the world system I was choosing to explore was the idea of voice for youth, the voice of youth to make a difference in the world. And if I'm committed to that, what am I doing to ensure they have a seat at the table and that we can hear their voice and that they're encouraged to speak and that we act on their words when spoken and that we support their actions in some ways? All of these are evidence of commitment to the process or the system I'm committed to, but am I following through? Am I doing the things that demonstrates actual commitment? And if it's free speech and true speech, I may not even agree with it, but the act of speaking is so important that solidarity is an important matter too. So this process of heartful intention that asks us to trust our heart, even before we can see the final results, or even if we haven't had evidence that it could work yet. Well, if you're crafting the story with true storytelling and using your heartful intent, then there is a surrender to that and a trust that the next needed thing will occur when it's time, when it's needed. Maybe not according to your schedule, but if you are in tune with your heart and that heart is in tune with the heart of the world's going to recognize that attunement and provide what's needed in a spirit of abundance and reciprocity. And that's an act of faith and trust and belief in true storytelling, the true stories of the heart. And why don't we give that a try for a while? It seems we've got enough evidence on other ways that get us the results that we get. So today there were a lot of breakthroughs for me and for those of us in the session that were exploring these different transformations when we look at how we have employed true storytelling or listened to our heart or didn't listen to our heart at times, and acknowledging that that just is what it is, and that becomes the raw material for the next story that's going to emerge from the heart. And so none of those experiences are wasted unless we don't do anything with them. So stop, be still, accept what is, and take new action, guided by the heart. That's me emptying my bowl into the cistern and sharing the water with you that I found. Take good care, and we'll see you at the next session, I hope.